thinking about your career, like knowing and understanding AI, how it works, because it sounds like in the future everyone's going to be using AI, and you're no longer going to be optimizing for search and SEO and human patterns.
Yep.
You're going to have to figure out to sell to an AI bot. How do you get your thing you're selling or marketing into the algorithm of an AI chat GPT style prompt? So I think it would be a whole different line of thinking in terms of like, hey, how do I build pages and products that AI will like and recommend to people that are using AI?
Three, two, one, go!
One. Welcome back, Rush Hour. We're actually doing a live taping. I'm TW. This is Justin.
Hey, y'all.
In person. We haven't done this before, so bear with us as we go through this. If something's messed up, it's probably my fault because we're at my crib. So I'll take it. Or for those of you that are joining us for the first time, this is a tech podcast, but we're non-technical guys. We've been in the industry for 25, 30 years combined, at all sorts of stages of companies, from IPOs, mergers, startups, brand new, Series A, angel. We've kind of been through it, done that, and we're kind of spitting free game here, talking about the future of tech for people like us and for people coming up. So the hottest topic today, as the Nasdaq is down 3% from these new tariffs, is just that the tariffs. Like, there's some talk of where these technology companies sit within the tariffs. I think there's China still has a huge, what is it, 135% tariff. That we're still doing this war. Things are paused, but it sounds like a lot of things, semiconductors, chips, are getting moved to more component or necessity based tariffs. So maybe it's less, maybe it's more. What are your thoughts, Justin? Where are we at?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy time, as everybody's well aware, and the ratcheting up of these tariffs between the U.S. and China doesn't seem necessarily look like it's dissipating anytime soon. I mean, obviously we can get some new news where things change, but I think it kind of still continues to ratchet up for the time being. And one of the things that was interesting in uh, what was announced with tariffs relative to this current period is that certain technological products, smartphones, flat screen TVs, silicon chips, etc., were going to be exempt from these other tariffs that other countries were getting. And some people were like, well, is this Trump kind of folding at this time? Has China really won the war? And then came back saying, well, no, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We're just going to recategorize it in a different way. And so I I think that the challenge is you don't really know what's going to happen in the markets. It's really kind of day to day, which is similar because we didn't really talk about this in the pre notes, but it's kind of corollary to like AI and what's going on within the industry generally, which is on a day to day basis. There could be a new model announced, there could be some new hardware, there could be some new innovation, and you have to just be on your toes. And now that's happening within the kind of the macroeconomic economy. And so I don't know if there's necessarily a one specific way to kind of navigate this time other than staying informed and realizing that on the one hand you got someone like Trump who is very kind of dug in to these tariffs, and if he can't necessarily do the rest of the world, there is going to be one country they're going after, and he's been talking about China forever. So I think that just ratchets up. And then, on the other hand, you have China. And if you look at any of the interviews they've done with folks, either, Chinese nationals or people studying policy, et cetera, they say, hey, this is a country that has lasted for 5,000 years and we've dealt with a lot of pain. And a period of Paris is nothing. We're not going to bend down to necessarily the U.S. aim. So I think it just continues to ratchet up. I think this tech space is getting a reprieve for now, but I don't necessarily know that lasts.
Yeah, I've been watching all this content, and I think I even saw like an old Steve Jobs clip where he talked about how the manufacturing in China, it's not about manpower and labor being cheap. It's just the technology and the investments they've made in this space
Yeah.
that just makes it a whole lot easier for companies to go there and make products very quickly. And it's not even about a cost of manpower. It's just like the infrastructure they built over there
Yeah.
is designed for this, and we're not. We're the opposite. We're the
Yeah.
consumer. They're the manufacturer. Is from just as a country. So like this shift that's happening seems like this is a long term shift. If it's not bluff, if it's not a bluff, and we want to sort of change the dynamics of how we operate as a country, we want to start manufacturing. Like, what are your thoughts for, you're coming out of school,
Yeah.
you're planning your career, you're coming out, maybe you're a business major, you're not a technical person, you're in marketing, you're in econ, whatever it is, you're coming out of school and you're trying to navigate, you're like, hey, I love tech. What should I do? Like, how do I navigate? What are your thoughts? What advice would you give somebody that's coming up today?
Yeah. I think to to your first point around, hey, with this whole kind of manufacturing context, what do you do? I think you don't necessarily lean into that, if I'm being honest. I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit on podcasts before, but you think about like robotics and how quickly that revolution is occurring, and robots going into warehouses and everything that's happened with Tesla and the efficiencies that have happened there based off them integrating more robotics. I don't think you necessarily go in and be like, okay, I'm going to be the guy on the line who's not a lot of technical capability but that's putting together pretty important components and putting the chips in here and the screws, et cetera, kind of the model that's going on in Asia now. I don't think that will exist. I think that the robots and other systems will take that over. But one of the things in conversations that I've had with a lot of friends in the space is I think you want to focus on areas where even if even if there are models that kind of can do jobs now, particularly within kind of software engineering piece. For non-technical folks, you want to think about how do I just increase my differentiated knowledge set and skill set as it comes to identifying trends or being really good at having taste, being really good at understanding human psychology. And those are the things that are ultimately going to stand out because a lot of the innovations that are happening now, a lot of the way these models are getting built, and as it relates to white collar jobs, for 5-10 years,
Right.
it's not really going to exist in the same way. So the things you can defend against are kind of very unique aspects of your experience and different things that are going on that kind of help deflect from that. And it's not like the best answer, if I'm being honest, but I think it's the most honest one right now relative to how quickly things are moving.
Yeah, I think from a tactical standpoint, if you're thinking about your career, like knowing and understanding AI, how it works, because it sounds like in the future, everyone's going to be using AI and you're no longer going to be optimizing for search and SEO and human patterns.
Yep.
You're going to have to figure out to sell to an AI bot. How do you get your thing you're selling or marketing into the algorithm of an AI ChatGPT style prompt? So I think it would be a whole different line of thinking in terms of like, hey, how do I build pages and products that AI will like and recommend to people that are using AI? So I think there's still gonna be some human element to this stuff. Like you can't everything can't be AI driven. There's still gonna be like, hey, I need to build things that humans use, but AI promotes and adapts, and maybe it's going to be up to AI to make things go viral in the future. So it's ultimately going to need some sort of human touch to figure out that.
Yep.
And I think the earlier you can get into this stuff, the better in understanding it, because it is going to continue to evolve. I mean, we're still early in this stage, and I think you're right. Like robots are going to handle the manufacturing of the actual goods.
Yep.
But still, you got to make the robots. You've got to decide which robots to use, which softwares to use. All of those things still probably need some level of human decision making that you should probably get in front of, right? That's
Yeah.
probably the best way to approach what's about to happen. I mean, it's not about to happen. It's probably a 10, 20, 30-year type of thing, right?
I mean, in some ways you hope, but in other ways it's like it could be
Or fast.
It could be 30% less than that. But I think the other piece is, and I think there are some things that like kind of demonstrate trends that are happening, which is we came out of the pandemic where you weren't able to spend a lot of time with people, and then all these experience economy related stuff, the run clubs, et cetera, began to really pop off. People were going to concerts, things like that. I think there is something about understanding what it is that best enables people to connect with each other in kind of the real world is something to focus on in terms of how do you cultivate and curate experiences that are just like better off offline, and it really lean into that. Yeah, so I think the other piece is, you know, do you lean more into experience economy type of work, right? So we have all these AI systems, and they're taking these functions that can be done like much better through AI, like a lot of white collar work, or you know ordering on Instacart, like things like that. Where kind of taking let me start that again. Sorry. Uh, 3, 2, 1. So yeah, so I think the other piece is kind of interesting is around experience economy type of stuff. So we'll be in this world, and it's probably coming faster than we know it, which is around AI being able to take away some of the mundane tasks, right? So I'm doing the ordering your Instacart, or picking your kid up in the Waymo, or all these other things, and so people I think will crave more human experiences. And so, like, if that's the case, then a lot of the emerging trends around these run clubs and opportunities for you to meet people kind of in your city, whereas especially as people are feeling more isolated, et cetera, figuring out ideas in and around that space and how to support that part of the economy. How do you figure out how to take concepts similar to our malls, for example, and make those more of opportunities for people to kind of connect in person, as all their lives online are kind of automated in some way. So I think that's kind of one way to also frame how to think about ideas within the space. But the devil's advocate point, or the counterpoint to that, could be one world is we're kind of living in abundance and we're spending more time. The other version is we're in this AR VR type of worlds where there's so much dopamine that you get from these platforms that people kind of immerse themselves in a Ready Player One type of environment. Yeah. And you have this incredible disparity between the have and have nots, and it's a more dystopian view of where life is going. But that's also a scenario. But for the former scenario, I think another way to think about how to add value within the ecosystem is, hey, what are things that are going to be better, or just better when it's humans doing them together.
Right. That's funny because I was watching a video about the Mr. Beast experience. Have you seen this?
Which one?
So there was one in Vegas this past weekend. Resorts World from the Hilton hosted a live Mr. Beast experience of games. Mm-hmm. When you bought the hotel, it came with like a gift package, and you did these challenges like the Amazon Prime Mr. Beast show.
Yep.
And all these people showed up, bought the package, and it essentially did not happen. So all these people showed up. They had like the check-in.
Yeah.
They got some random T-shirts, and that was it. So every day they'd go and check in, and like there was no Mr. Beast sort of games anywhere, and they were like traveling all around. They had the map and the itinerary, but nobody was actually running it. And I just found that. I think they ultimately refunded everybody, and then Mr. Beast reached out and said, he apologized, and it was some kind of mishap. But like that's an imperfect example of how it could go down, though, which is like, hey, now I'm going to go meet my influencer that I love and participate in games with that person. I mean, obviously, this one was a huge mix-up, but like that, I can imagine a world where that is huge.
Yeah,
that is a big thing that you do, and maybe. Yeah, there is this path where like we're such a consumer centric country. I wonder if a lot of that could, because of all this shuffle, go away. Like people think, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't need all this stuff. Maybe all of these things are being manufactured in China, and I'm being sold this story of like European Gucci, all these things, and they're just all coming out of a factory. Maybe I don't know. There seems to be a little bit of movement around like, hey, this stuff. Maybe I don't need this stuff. It's expensive. What am I working for? What, to have this stuff to do what?
Yeah.
It could go that way. Then I don't know where we are. Then I think it's everything can be digital. Like in the world is digital. There's less manufacturing needs because really you just need your necessities.
Right.
And then everything else is online, which that is a wild thought, but it's possible. I'm not going to say I'm betting on that, but
yeah.
It is interesting. Like I feel like there's less hype around things than there was maybe during COVID, but that could be just where I am in my life. But there was a while where Nike sneakers were big, and Supreme and clothing and
Mhm.
all these things were like there was an aura attached to them that seems to be gone now.
Yeah, where do you think that attention? This is kind of it's within the context of the conversation, but like, where do you think that attention is going now? Where do you think people are spending those dollars?
Yeah, it is. It is. I don't know. Actually, I think the attention is also a thing that I like seems more spread, more diversified across different channels than ever before. Before it's like, oh, everyone is on Facebook, on Snap, on
Hmm.
TikTok. Now it feels like everybody's everywhere, and
Yeah.
like it's hard to, there's no Super Bowl ad where everyone's going to be like focused on one thing. It seems really hard. We talked about it. It seems really hard now to get the attention of lots of people in one broad swoop. And you've got to work really hard as a marketer and a business person to like find all your niches, and you really got to be really authentic towards them. I think that makes these jobs really hard right now, right? Like
Oh,
the to figure out how to market to your products to a certain demographic, you need to really understand that. It's hard to just go broad and throw some ads and be done. Like
yeah.
this is a different time.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting about that, which is like the large kind of one of the things you touched upon was, hey, people aren't having the same type of collective experiences they had previously, where there'd be like one brand or one movement or one show, et cetera, that everybody's behind. Obviously, you have certain seminal entertainment that people kind of watch, all together from time to time, but otherwise, on the day to day, it's hard to kind of get all your attention on one thing.
Yeah,
And you know, what I found, just kind of relating it to my own journey of kind of going through and doing, growth consulting and kind of starting my own business, et cetera. And I've always had some knowledge into this relative to being in the marketing arena, but just the power of understanding audience, being able to build an audience, et cetera, um, regardless of kind of the type of business that you're in, it's going to become more and more important because if you think about the trend of kind of AI uh, making it so that there just won't necessarily need to be as many kind of jobs uh, or industries are really getting changed, then there's fewer people in those jobs. Then you have to go out and fend for yourself, learning distribution, learning how to build a brand, learning how to sell, etc. Those are skill sets that become extremely important because otherwise you won't be able to compete in the marketplace
yeah,
uh, at all.
yeah.
So
It's so true.
yeah,
It's interesting because when I first moved out here and started working, it was very much like who can code, who can do HTML, who can have these sort of like hard skills to build things. And the stuff that wasn't important was like, hey, soft skills and selling and talk. And now it seems like we're shifting because AI can do so many of those hard skills.
yes,
Now it's more about like who can relate to people, who can sell things, who can do like those skills now become so much more important. So maybe um for that advice for those that are coming up, it is get out there and ABC or always be closing and selling
yeah,
and trying to understand the mindset of where people are because it is changing. But I think like coming out there and working on your pitch and working on your selling and working on relating to people and not having your head in your phone all the time,
yeah.
it's going to be important because like it seems like there's going to be a time where that stuff is going to be really rare and really hard, and like to have a young person that's able to do those things is probably going to be a huge advantage, right? Like would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think that if there's anything that this time period has taught us, and really since kind of ChatGPT 2022, where we're coming up on, it's coming up on 3 years
Yeah,
since ChatGPT was first released, which is we're living in a time of, where you have to be flexible, where you're not necessarily sure kind of what's going to happen the next day. You're not really sure the impacts that are going to happen to the economy as we're no longer in as globalized economy with all these tariffs and everything else, where people are
right.
becoming more insular uh, with all the technology. They're just by virtue of kind of the productivity that's driven, fewer jobs, et cetera. And so we're coming into an age of just more uncertainty,
Yeah,
not less. And when there's an age of more uncertainty, then you need to know that when uncertain things happen, especially along the lines of jobs, you want to be building skill sets that help you to still kind of participate and survive in that marketplace.
Yeah, you got your stuff needs to translate across, horizontally instead of vertically. So make sure you're working on things that can carry across multiple companies, multiple divisions, multiple industries. This stuff's important, and it's hard. It's hard to like put your hand on it, but I think that is something everyone probably has. It just needs to dig in a little more and be like, hey, what are the things I need to work on again,
Yeah.
and kind of buckle in and do it.
I think so. I think just to build on that point, I think the other piece is there's probably, we're trying to come at this from the perspective of being non-technical people, but I think that there's not a world, and I think about this with my kids because I have, two young kids now. I'm trying to think about the world through their eyes and how to set them up for success. I think you have to have some technical understanding, if not total
For sure.
capabilities, because technology is going to be embedded literally into every single thing that we do, like sooner than later. And so the more that you can kind of understand the building blocks of that technology, the more you can be able to pivot as different as the world changes. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to become a software developer or kind of going coding, et cetera, but you should have some basic knowledge and you should have some understanding of how these tools work, because that's going to help you stay more competitive.
No, absolutely. And what about investing tips? Like that just makes me think, where should we putting our investments for the next? Because right now it's tumultuous. You don't know, like, should you be buying consumer goods, tech, Walmart? Like, where should we be?
Yeah.
It seems like a really tough time to decide where to put your dollars, where they should be working, because we're as a country, we're still figuring it out. You see, that's fair.
I think so. From an investing perspective, and I think we have to do this. I'm not a financial advisor. Anything I say, take it with a grain of salt. Is just based on my experience. But the way that I think about this time is, okay, where is this innovation still happening from? Still coming from? It's coming from Silicon Valley, right? Like more or less. Obviously, there you have China and you have some of these other markets that are still, promoting. That are still able to build and frankly do with less resources, and I think that's great overall for consumers, and that's a good thing. But where are the smartest people, where are the researchers, et cetera, are coming? It's Silicon Valley. And who are the people who are tracking those folks? It's these tech companies that, the ones that we can all name, the Microsofts and Amazons and Alphabets, et cetera. And so I think that the value in terms of companies still accrues to these companies. I don't think that they have as nearly as large employee bases. I think they'll continue to, culling rounds of layoffs, et cetera. But I think that's where the smartest minds will be going to kind of develop cutting edge technology. People will be making a lot more. There'll be fewer of them, but that's where they're still coming. So if I'm investing in individual stocks, that's probably still where I'm looking.
Yeah.
So it's that, the Silicon Valley cutting edge type of companies. It's S&P 500, which even though it's like kind of crazy right now, if you look back over the course of time, it's like the smartest place. If you do kind of believe that the U.S. will still exist, dollar cost average into the S&P 500, and then I think, and again, I'm late 30s, but started. So I think I could still be more aggressive with plays. But if you aren't, and you want a bit more of a balanced mix during this period, you got CDs, you got bonds, put some of your money in cash, and like that's probably what I'm doing with my other dollars. And I'm not doing the options trade. I'm not getting much fancier than that because I just that's not my
if you're a young whippersnapper that's trying to gamble big, maybe that's a route you go. But it's hard to. That is risky stuff. I know a lot of people do that and make a lot of money. But there are also those that lose a lot. And I've heard, many of people lose a pretty penny really quickly in these crazy times. So be careful out there. Otherwise, till the next episode. Appreciate you coming through.
Yeah, man. It's good being at the crib. Good doing this in person.
Yeah, let's do it again.